een man met een goed verstand, een redelijk goede baan, die toch, zo heeft hij dat geleerd in het leven, neerkijkt op zijn eigen werk, zegt Dalrymple, die zwaar gefrustreerd en zich aan de slag gaat en zichzelf een enorm slachtoffer wederom van de omstandigheden voelt. What mistakes does he make in his thinking?
Well, there are, of course, the first thing is that he doesn't recognize his own resentment. He doesn't recognize either the source or even the existence of his own resentment.
Is it possible for a human being? We are complicated machines. So
I think it's better to do. It's possible to do better than he does in this respect.
Yeah.
I don't say, and which of us doesn't has never used resentment as a kind of mechanism for.
Dat is interessant. Hij herkent zijn eigen wraakgevoelens niet. What does that tell us about our society? He doesn't recognize his own resentment.
I think that is a very common failing, because what we have now, we have an expression, I don't know whether you have it in Dutch, psychobabble. People talk...
Psychogebabbel.
Yes. And actually that is talking about yourself without revealing anything about yourself or without knowing anything about yourself. So it's, as I said, a kind of self-absorption without genuine self-examination and moral self-examination. And that means that although you still feel the resentment, you have to project it onto something else. You can't actually examine the sources of it, and therefore, I think, overcome it. And I, of course, as I say, I think this is a permanent possibility for human beings. There's nobody who's never resented anything, and resentment is a useless emotion, and it's actually it's worse than useless, it's harmful, but it never lets you down. You can go through your life resenting, and it has certain rather sour consolations.
Ja, hij is dus een man met wraakgevoelens en die spiegelt die op anderen. Hij onderzoekt nooit zijn eigen wraakgevoelens. Ook nog eens een keer een radicale veganist. Ook niet voor niets natuurlijk. But then again, where does that resentment comes from? I mean, you think that a lot of people in this modern society know that resentment.
Well, again, I think it comes partly from intellectual sources, because, for example, the concept of entitlement has gone very far. So that if you, for example, talk about healthcare, people will say they have a right to healthcare. I don't believe that. I believe it's a morally impoverishing thing to say that someone has a right to healthcare. And if you say to someone that you don't believe he has a right to healthcare, he immediately says, so you think people should be allowed to die in the street of curable diseases? And that demonstrates just how impoverished our moral imagination is, that you can think of no reason for treating anybody for an illness other than that he has a right to such treatment.
Yeah, but he should be treated because?
Because it's the decent, kind, humane thing to do.
Yeah.
And the problem with the idea of rights is that if you feel that you have an entitlement to something, if you get it, you are ungrateful. If you don't get it, you are resentful.
Yeah.
So the best you can be is ungrateful. And
we komen hier in het domein van de rechten. Hij zegt, kijk, iedereen denkt recht op gezondheidszorg te hebben. Dat is iets wat noodzakelijk is in de moderne samenleving. Maar dat denken in termen van rechten maakt dat we een afhankelijkheid creëren die wanstaltige vormen kan aannemen. Laat ik dat anders illustreren. Waarmee ik niet zeg dat ik het ermee eens ben. We denken allemaal dat we bijvoorbeeld een recht op geluk hebben. We think we have a right on happiness.
Yes, I mean, as the American Declaration says, we have the right to the pursuit of happiness, but now we think we have the right to the thing itself. The fundamental point, I suppose, of the book is that when you have that kind of state of mind, you regard the locus of moral concern to be not your own actions and your own little sphere in life, because your own sphere in life is very small, but the whole of the world. You're more excuse me, if you like, the further a problem is away from you, the more moral responsibility you feel for it. which of course gives you license to behave any way you like, because after all you're only one person, and what you do is of no statistical or sociological significance, simply because you're just one person.
Dat hele rechtensysteem maakt dat we alles wat moraal betreft buiten onszelf gaan plaatsen, waar we geen greep meer op hebben. De heroïne deed het mes werd gestoken. De connectie is duidelijk. So it is as if that whole moral institution is something far away from us. Yeah. And here we are, and we can't do anything about it. We have a right to it. And when we do something, we didn't do it. That's your point.
That's partly it, yes. And for example, I mean, I'll give you an example. And of course, all the arguments that my protagonist, I can't call him a hero, my protagonist uses are arguments that you can actually find in moral philosophy, academic moral philosophy. For example, there are moral philosophers who say that to omit to do something is as bad as actually doing it if the consequences are the same. For example, if you have a large income, which of course you don't need merely for your survival, and you fail to use it to save the life of people who could have been saved by that money, you are responsible for those people's deaths. All the people you could have saved with your money, you are responsible for their deaths as much as if you had actually killed them. Now, this is a serious moral argument in moral philosophy. I mean, it's put forward seriously. I mean, when I say it's serious, I think it's taken seriously. Now, what I've done is made a serial killer take that to its logical conclusion, which is that although he has actually killed with his own hands 22 people, because he has a smaller income than many other people, he's actually responsible for fewer deaths than they are, so that they have no right to criticize him for having killed the people with his own hands.
Uh-huh. Was it fun to write the book?
Yes, great fun. I enjoyed it.
More than writing an essay?
Oh yes, much more fun, really. I mean, because of course you could. What happened was that things came into your mind as I was writing it. So it was great fun. I mean, I chuckled and laughed. I hope the reader laughs, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.